Sometimes, if you want to understand the real soul of a nation, you don't look at its biggest wins. You look at its moments of incredible sacrifice. This is the story of how one single, desperate act during a terrible war became a defining legend for Paraguay. It's a story that's not just about history, but about memory itself.
And that right there, that's the heart of this whole thing. This isn't just about what happened on some remote riverbank more than 150 years ago. It's about how that single event has echoed through time, shaping a whole identity, and how the battle is still being fought, not with cannons, but in classrooms, in ceremonies, and in the shared consciousness of a nation.
So let's dive in. We're talking about the Gesta of Vapor Cué. Now, from a military standpoint, this event was really just a footnote in the massive, devastating conflict known as the Triple Alliance War. But culturally, wow, it became a foundational pillar of modern Paraguayan identity. So how does that happen? How does a moment of tactical desperation become a national cornerstone?
To really get what Vapor Cué is all about, we have to understand this idea first. Historical memory isn't some dusty list of dates and facts. Think of it more like a living story that a nation tells itself about who it is, based on the events it chooses to lift up and remember. It's all about the meaning we pour into the past.
Okay, so our story takes us way back to one of the final tragic chapters of a war that had already just decimated Paraguay. The year is 1869. And the nation's forces are in a full-blown retreat. On this day, the last little bits of the Paraguayan Navy were trapped, completely cornered on the Paraguay River, with a much bigger Brazilian force closing in fast. There was no escape. They were facing an absolutely impossible choice. These were the last 7 ships they had. Following a direct order from their leader, Marshal Francisco Solano Lopez, the sailors made a decision that would change everything. The thinking was, we cannot let these ships be captured. We can't let the enemy use them against our own people. So they destroyed them. They scuttled and burned the entire fleet.
And what's so interesting is what the historian Angelo Piccinini points out. He says this act had very little direct impact on the outcome of the war, but symbolically, it was monumental. This was the definitive end of the Paraguayan Navy, and it was an act of ultimate defiance.
So how does an act of self-destruction become a foundational symbol for a country? How do you build a story of national spirit from the ashes of your own fleet? Well, it all comes down to what the action came to represent.
The event basically crystallized into these 4 powerful ideas. It wasn't seen as a surrender, not at all. It was seen as the ultimate act of sacrifice. It represented a spirit of resistance that would rather destroy its own resources than give in. It was proof of unwavering loyalty, and all of that became a core part of the story Paraguay told about its own resilience.
But a story, a symbol, it's a fragile thing. It can be forgotten pretty easily. For the memory of Vapor Cué to survive, people had to actively work to preserve it. This is the story of how a piece of the past was intentionally kept alive.
And this transformation is just incredible when you think about it. The very site of the conflict, this muddy riverbed where the ships just sat for over a century, was eventually turned into a national park. A place of war literally became a place of peace and remembrance.
Now, this didn't just happen by accident. For more than 100 years, those ships just stayed in the river. Then, in the 1980s, this massive, deliberate effort was launched to raise them from their watery graves. That act of recovery was itself an act of remembering, and it's what led to the creation of the park.
And that remembrance continues today. Every single year on August 18th, the nation pauses to commemorate the event. You've got official ceremonies, school trips, patriotic displays. The whole point is to retell the story to make sure the sacrifice of those sailors is never lost to time.
And this brings up a really crucial question. Why do this? What's the ultimate purpose of preserving such a painful memory? It really speaks to the profound responsibility that comes with being the caretaker of a nation's history.
That historian, Angelo Piccinini, gives us a critical warning here. He says the goal of remembering should be to build unity and understanding, to learn lessons about resilience and sacrifice, but, and this is a big but, it has to be done carefully. You have to avoid turning that memory into a weapon of resentment or a story of being a perpetual victim. It's really about building a future, not just dwelling on the past.
So that leaves us with this essential question. The story of Vapor Cué isn't just about Paraguay. It's a case study for any society grappling with a traumatic past. How do you honor the sacrifices without glorifying the conflict? How do you remember with a purpose?
In the end, the ships of Vapor Cué were resurrected, not just from a river, but into the very heart of a nation's story.
It's a powerful testament to the idea that what we choose to remember, and more importantly, how we choose to remember it, is what truly defines who we are and what we hope to become.